Welcome to the Chapter 1 Building Confident Readers. This 30-minute session will cover the following topics. Phonics. What is it and how does it help children learn to read? The Chapter 1 activities. Feedback and how it helps us provide you with a better experience. Chapter 1 reading levels, colours and stories. Developing fluent reading and communication skills. Working with a struggling or reluctant reader. How to use notes. Classroom life. And school visits. If you're a returning reading volunteer, then please note that we have refreshed this training with more detail about the outcomes we hope Chapter 1 children will achieve, which we hope you will find useful. Please don't worry about making notes during this training. You will be able to review this video and others in the Chapter 1 knowledge base at your convenience. The knowledge base also contains lots of useful external expert resources to help you understand how best to support an emerging reader. Remember, we're keen for our volunteers to read consistently with their pupils for 25 sessions or more over the year. If you've had any exposure to 5 to 7-year-olds, you might have heard the term phonics, but many adults don't really know what phonics is. Please be reassured that we're not expecting you to be an expert in phonics. That is the teacher's role. With our support, your role is therefore to build a sustained one-to-one relationship with your young reader to help them develop a love of reading and build their reading confidence and motivation. We hope you can make good use of our technology to provide inclusive and engaging reading sessions and create a positive environment, a safe space, so your young reader feels encouraged, has choice, and feels that they can have a go. It's so special that with you, they are able to practice reading aloud, to talk to somebody about what they're reading, and to take pleasure in stories and books. But having an understanding of the role phonics plays in early reading will help you to support the pupil you will be reading with throughout the school year. So we're going to explain the basics. Phonics is a way of teaching children how to read and write. It helps children hear, identify, and use different sounds that distinguish one word from another in the English language. Introducing young children to the joy and wonder of books requires a systematic teaching of phonics, a mandatory part of the curriculum in English schools. To understand phonics, it helps to think of the English language as a code. Knowing the sounds of individual letters and how those letters sound when they're combined helps children decode words as they read and write. For example, when a child is taught the pure sounds for the letters T, P, A, and S, they can start to build up the words tap, taps, pat, pats, and sat. A pure sound is the pronunciation of each letter sound clearly and distinctly without adding additional sounds to the end. For instance, the F sound is pronounced as f and not f. Children will learn sounds in a specific order in reception in Year 1, building their ability to decode cumulatively so that they're not overwhelmed by the complexity of the English language all in one go. A little later in this video, we will go into a little more depth about how phonics is taught and how you can support your children effectively. Now that we've provided you with a brief introduction to phonics, let's turn to the types of activities you can do as part of your Chapter 1 session. Many volunteers have told us that they feel nervous prior to their first reading session. Your pupil may be a little nervous too. To help get over those first session jitters, we suggest you take some time to get to know your pupil by asking them about their likes and dislikes and having some general conversation. And if you want to be sure you know how the platform works, don't forget our practice feature too. Prior to your session, the classroom computer will be sitting in a virtual queue waiting for you to connect. When your call is answered and you indicate that your student is available, your computer connects with the classroom computer in the virtual queue. Unlike screen sharing, your computer and the classroom computer are independent, even though they display the same material. As the reading volunteer, you control the session and decide what activities to show to your student. When working with your student, there may be times when it is unclear if they are viewing the same material as you. As we mentioned in the basic training, to view a representation of the child's screen, click on the icon at the top of the screen and a window will appear which shows you what a child ought to see on their screen. This will help you to direct them if they're unsure of what to do, or if it's unclear they are viewing what you sent. This feature is a guide only and should not replace reaching out to chat support for assistance. If the child reports that they are unable to see anything at their end, or are seeing something different to what the window displays to you, it may be necessary for chat support to remote into the pupil's computer to troubleshoot a technical problem. Let's take a moment to talk about the reading levels on the Chapter 1 platform. At the beginning of the year, each pupil is assessed by their teacher and assigned a reading level based on word and phonic knowledge, and to a lesser extent, comprehension and reading fluency. The pupils selected will be emerging readers who have mastered initial letter sounds and are now ready to focus on learning to sound out and read simple words. With your support and the additional practice you provide each week, these pupils will show significant reading gains and an improvement in their attitudes and behaviours towards reading, such as confidence, motivation, and enjoyment. Making sure pupils are reading at the correct reading level throughout the year is important to their success. If a child struggles consistently with the text and gets frustrated, they are likely to want to give up. The opposite is also true. If a pupil is reading material easily and understands the meaning of what they've read, it's time to move them on to more challenging reading material to fend off boredom. To provide your student with the best possible experience, we have divided the skills practiced during your sessions into two categories: activities and stories. Our platform's activities focus on phonics, word knowledge, and vocabulary. Stories, by contrast, are a range of fiction and non-fiction texts that support children to decode words, as well as helping them with fluency and comprehension. Please note that activities and stories follow different levelling systems, and you will need to move those levels independently as your student progresses. At the beginning of the year, your pupil will be assigned both an activity level and a story level by their teacher. Each time you log into the platform for a session, you will see the most recent activity and story level. Please note that both you and your pupil's teacher have the ability to move your pupil up or down the activity and story levels based on his or her progress. Let's start by looking at activity levels. Activity levels are the same for both flashcards and word activities or games. These levels follow a numeric levelling structure that goes from 2 to 5. The lowest level, level 2, includes basic words learned in Year 1 or P2. These will be both words that can be decoded with the sounds that children have learnt in their phonics lessons so far, and tricky words like the and. The highest level, level 5, includes more challenging words learned later in Year 1 or P2 and Year 2 or P3. If you have a child who appears to know all the words offered at this level, you may decide that you can move past flashcards and focus all your session on reading stories. As you move your student's activity level up or down, the words found in both flashcards and word activities, like 3 in a row, will change based on the level you select. Story levels follow a different system that is organised by colour. Our coloured levels range from pink to purple. We have worked with expert educators to ensure that texts at each colour level only contain certain groups of sounds and are decodable. Our range represents beginning reading texts through to early Year 2 or P3 reading texts. You'll find that the texts at lower reading levels are very short and simple. We've done this deliberately so we can help you to build the confidence of early readers by ensuring that they're exposed to sounds that they've already been taught in class. Reading at the correct reading level is important for young readers. So, how do you know when to move a pupil to the next level? The goal is for your pupil to read aloud to you confidently and fluently, practicing the sounds that they have learnt in class and making the meaning of the story clear. If the pupil is flying through the text and they understand the meaning of what they've read, then please do move them to the next colour reading level in the programme. If you find the material is too difficult for your student, you can always move them back to the previous reading level and then try advancing them again the following week. Your input in deciding when your child is ready to move to the next reading level is highly valuable, as teachers often use this information as part of their reading assessment of the children. So please feel you can do this without needing to ask the teacher. As explained earlier, teachers may also update pupil story levels, and if they do, you will notice that on the platform when you log in. Now let's turn to a demonstration of how the activities and stories work and guidance on how to structure your reading volunteering sessions. As explained earlier, in addition to providing stories for practicing reading and fluency skills, we also provide students with activities and word games designed to build their knowledge of words and word parts. You can fit these in between stories to break up reading, or offer children a chance to do them before you say goodbye for the week. While we have suggestions about the time you could spend on each activity, do remember that this is not set in stone. Feel free to experiment with what works best for you and the child you're supporting. The first activity in the sequence is flashcards. We recommend you spend 5 minutes at the beginning of your session on flashcards. This is a great way for your student to practice their decoding and sight word skills and prepare for the reading session. You'll notice that the platform divides flashcards into 2 types: sounds and tricky words. Sound flashcards are designed to help pupils practice recognizing, saying, and blending sounds, also known as phonemes, in words that they can decode or sound out. For example, the 3 individual sounds k, a, t in the decodable word cat. Tricky word flashcards help pupils practice common words that cannot be sounded out or don't match the child's sound knowledge yet. Children need to learn these words by sight. Feel free to move between the 2 flashcard tabs during your reading session. There are lots of sounds and words to choose from, depending on your child's flashcard level. Let's talk about sound flashcards first. As you may remember, Chapter 1 flashcards and activities are organised according to levels of difficulty from 2 to 5. These broadly correspond to the order in which sounds are taught in phonics lessons in schools. Children are taught simple common sounds first, for example, the a in at or the I in pin, and then, as they progress, teachers gradually introduce alternative pronunciations for these sounds. For example, the short I in tip is pronounced differently to the long I in find, and the latter is taught later. We will use the simplest level, level 2, to explain how flashcards work on our platform. Don't forget, if you need a refresher, directions are always available and can be expanded and closed as needed. First, select a letter or group of letters from the black tiles in the lower part of the screen. Words starting with or containing that sound will display in the grey box. Notice the first word is highlighted purple. This word will be immediately visible to your pupil. Ask your child to read you this word. They may need help sounding out the word. Remember that the word might contain individual sound phonemes, digraphs, 2 letters making one sound, like ch, or trigraphs, 3 letters making a sound, like I. Once they have sounded a word out, it's important to ask the child to blend the sounds together so that the word is read smoothly and fluently. If your pupil struggles with this, use the I do, we do, you do technique to build their confidence. First, you sound out, then blend the word. Then you and your pupil sound out and blend the word together. And finally, your pupil sounds out and blends the word alone. You may feel your pupil needs additional practice, or it would be helpful to see the sound used in a sentence. Most sounds at the lower levels have captions that include the sound or word. Click on the instruction in the captions box in order to see a caption. As soon as you do this, the caption will be visible to your pupil. You can read the caption to them first or ask them to read it to you. If there is more than one practice caption, you will see small arrows that will allow you to move between them. This caption functionality is not available at levels 4 and 5. You will also notice that level 4 is organised a little differently to the other levels. Level 4 uses practice sets of words rather than individual sound tiles. This helps children consolidate the sounds they've learnt at level 2 and 3 by using them in longer words which have lots of consonants. As your pupil reads the words in the grey box, you can mark the practice set of words green or red based on the child's knowledge of the words. If a child can read all the words in the box, click the green button. This will mark the sound tile or practice set green. If you think that the sound or practice set needs more work, click the red button and the sound tile or practice set will turn red. The platform will remember this for your next session. The child will not see this assessment, it's just visible to you. All they will see is the words or captions that you click on. When marking sounds green or red, the goal is for your pupil to read all words in the practice set before marking that sound green. It's up to you to determine if your pupil has sufficiently mastered a sound. Please note, in all levels of sound flashcards, our platform does not have the ability for you to mark individual words as green or red. You need to make the judgment at the sound level. Now, let's talk about tricky words in flashcards. As explained earlier, these are specific words that children need to learn by sight and are displayed in groups according to level. You can simply click on a word and it will immediately be visible to your pupil. You can mark each word as known or unknown using the green and red buttons. The platform will remember this for your next session. Again, your pupil will not see this assessment. The next activity in our suggested sequence is stories. Reading stories out loud is the most important thing that your student will do, as it is where he or she gets a chance to practice. You should ideally spend 15 to 20 minutes of your session each week reading stories, but each child will be different, and some may not be able to concentrate on reading for that long earlier in the year. When you're ready to read stories, click on Stories from the left menu. The story level or colour that your child is reading at will always be displayed on the yellow box in the purple banner. As we explained earlier, you should feel free to change this as the child progresses. Teachers may also update levels, and if they do, you will notice the child's level has changed when you next log on. The stories that you select will be visible in rows on both your screen and on the student's screen. We have a wide array of stories on our platform and hope our range of fiction and non-fiction texts gives children exposure to other cultures, traditions and experiences and helps them make human connections. Have fun with your pupil, choosing which story they want to read and guessing what they might be about. The student can tell you which book he or she would like to read by giving you the number next to the book title or describing the picture. Giving children choice about what they read is a first and very important step in helping them develop a love of reading. Let's take a look at a typical story and make sure it's clear what you do and what your pupil will see. When you choose a story from the library, the child will see the title page of that story on their screen. Often the names of the author and illustrator are also displayed here. These can be complicated words, so it's a good idea to read these to your pupil. Please note that this title page may also contain a challenge word. This is a word that the child will not know how to decode or sound out at their reading level. Please read this word out to your pupil and discuss its meaning with them. Now it's time to move into the story. While you can advance the stories forward using the arrow keys, your pupil will not have that option and can only see the page number. You might decide to look through or walk through the whole book with your pupil before reading it. You can mention some of the key or challenge words and give them a sense of the story before they read it, which can boost the confidence of early or reluctant readers. Do remember to use the pictures in each story too. When you start to read each page, you can help your pupil prepare to read by asking them to look at the picture and describe what they think the story is about or what might happen next. You may also want to take turns reading with your pupil if they often struggle. You could alternate reading each page. This is a good way of taking the pressure off and modelling fluent and expressive reading. As you read, you may want your student to focus on a particular word. You can do this in two ways. First, you can click on a word on your screen which will highlight the word on the child's view of the page, or you can show that word to your student by typing in the message box. For example, if your student is struggling with the word sing, you can type the word or its individual letters in the message student box and send that word to your student. Remind them to sound it out using their phonics, but don't hesitate to give them the word if they seem stuck. When you send the word to your pupil in this way, it will appear for them as if spoken by a small owl in the top left of the screen. Asking them what the owl is saying is a good way to check they can see the word you've sent. Now that you understand how to use the story area of the platform, let's focus in on how you can help your pupil practice their reading skills. The time you spend practicing reading with your pupil, encouraging them and praising their efforts, will create a safe environment where they can learn and grow. Don't underestimate the impact you will have on your pupil. Something as simple as sharing your own enthusiasm and love for reading is a powerful tool. While we're not asking you to be an expert in phonics or in early education, it is helpful to understand the skills pupils need as they work towards becoming better, fluent readers. Once children have mastered letter sounds, there are 4 components to becoming a proficient reader. The first is having a strong oral vocabulary. The second is mastering the code of the English language through phonics teaching. The third is being able to read a passage fluently. And the fourth is being able to comprehend that passage and having enough knowledge of the world to give context to what the pupil is reading. These are all interrelated, and during the course of the year, you will help your pupil build these skills. One skill we suggest you hone in on is fluency. Fluency is the ability to both understand the text and read a passage with limited or no sounding out of individual words at a reasonable speed and with expression so that it sounds natural. When reading fluently, the pupil doesn't need to expend too much processing power on a particular word and can think about the story in its totality. As we covered earlier in the training, children in UK schools are taught to read using a system called phonics. Phonics focuses on the sounds of letters in a word rather than their alphabet names, as it is easier for children to understand. Once a child has mastered the strategies taught in conjunction with phonics, they will be on their way to reading fluently. Remember that the children you're supporting will be using specific vocabulary in the classroom to help them identify parts of words and reading strategies during their phonics lessons. If you're able to use some of this vocabulary when working with your student, that can help guide them. This vocabulary can seem rather technical to someone who's unfamiliar with early reading instruction. We've included a PDF with links to videos about phonics and a glossary of terms in the knowledge base. Some schools also use specific reading schemes like Read, Write, Ink that have their own distinct language, so there are some knowledge base resources that will help you with this too. When working with your pupil, you may find it helpful to use these terms. Here are a few examples of some of the terms pupils will be familiar with. The first is phoneme. Each letter sound unit is known as a phoneme. For example, the word snap has 4 phonemes. S, N, A, P. These are pure, short sounds. The second is blending. Children will identify sounds and then blend or merge or push them together to make a word. When working with your student, try saying, "Let's work on the sounds in this word and then we can blend them together." Blending is a key foundational skill for fluent reading and one that lots of children struggle with. Next, we have digraphs and trigraphs. These are 2 or 3 letters which together make one sound, such as the E sound in the word seen or the I in sigh. There are 3 different types of digraphs: vowel digraphs like seen, tool or sneak, consonant digraphs such as the sh sound in shine, and split digraphs. Split digraphs work as a pair to make one sound but are separated within the word. Words like late or right are examples of a split digraph. Let's look at a simple sentence. I got a flag. The pupil will need to know I and A by sight. However, they are unlikely to know the words got and flag by sight. In order to understand the sentence, the pupil will need to know some kind of phonics strategy to sound out the word. The reading strategy that is used in all English primary schools is for children to sound out f or a, g, using single sounds or phonemes and then blend them to read the word. So, when a pupil comes across a difficult word, encourage them to use their phonic knowledge and blend the phonemes together to read the word. If your pupil is struggling to blend, support them to blend the first 2 sounds together, then blend the rest of the word. For example, in the word short, blend sh and or to make sure, and then blend with the t at the end. Some people struggle to remember when to use which sound for a letter. Do remember that English has lots of alternative pronunciations. For example, the digraph CH can be said ch, as in check, k, as in school, or sh, as in chef. You will recognise that as an adult without thinking. But if a child is struggling with which sound to use for a particular letter or group of letters, encourage them to sound out the word and see if it makes sense within the sentence. If it doesn't, suggest they experiment with a different sound or alternative pronunciation. While we want pupils to give the word a try, we don't want them to dwell too long on a word they just can't seem to identify. Ask your pupil to continue reading the sentence and return to the difficult word. There may be a cue in the story that will help the pupil identify the word. If they still can't manage it, please do just read it for them. This is especially true for the challenge words that you will have identified at the start of the story. In addition to mastering decoding, blending, and sounding out, children also need encouragement to enjoy and understand the stories you read together. Asking questions about the story is a good way to see if your student is able to remember key points of the story. But having a child develop their comprehension skills is about much more than asking questions to test their memory. Comprehension is about developing connections between what they have seen in the book and the world they understand. Can the student tell you about the story in their own words, or make connections between the story and their own experiences? How would they feel if they were a character in this story? Having empathy with characters helps create thoughtful readers. Not all stories include comprehension questions, but feel free to spend time asking your pupil about the story when you're finished reading. Did they like it? If so, why? You may also want to recap or retell a story at the end as a fun activity. It's a great skill for young readers to develop. If a story does include comprehension questions, they will be presented on your screen at the end of the story. The pupil screen will display pictures to help them remember what the story is about. In addition to developing phonics, fluency, and comprehension skills in reading sessions, children also need the opportunity to develop their communication or verbal and oracy skills. As you carry out the activities and read the stories with your child, take advantage of naturally occurring opportunities to hone these communication skills. For example, prompt your child to express their likes and dislikes about a particular story, make connections between the story and their own experiences, recap or retell the story in their own words. Alternatively, take the opportunity to get children engaged in natural, general conversations, such as describing what they did at the weekend. As we mentioned earlier, it can be hard for children to concentrate only on reading stories for a full 30 minutes. That's why our platform also contains 5 word activities that you can choose to use with your pupil. You'll find that your child will develop firm favourites and enjoy beating you. It's up to you whether you use these to warm up at the start of the session, or before you say goodbye, or in between stories to mix things up a little. The games are Word Sort, 3 in a row, Mystery Word, Word World, and the Whiteboard. What follows is a brief look at each game. To view step-by-step instructions, see the directions sidebar on each page. In the word sort activity, students will practice sorting words based on their word endings. This is great practice for students learning how to sound out words. As the reading volunteer, you will select the word from the list of 9 words you'll see above coloured boxes. Your student will see the same word on screen, but will only see one word, not the menu that you have. Ask your student where the word belongs based on the word ending. Once you click on the appropriate box, the word will populate and the student will see the same word on their screen. Once all the words have been placed in a box, draw your student's attention to the similarities of the words and then ask your student to read the words in each box. 3 in a row is a favourite activity for many students. This additional exposure to words will help encourage fluent reading and word identification. When you're ready to begin, determine who will be a cross and who will be a nought. Notice each box has a word. Your pupil can see the same words as you. When your student selects a box, ask them to read the word. If they get it correct, place a cross or a nought in the box. You and your student will try to be the first to get 3 crosses or noughts in a row, up, down, across, or diagonally. And when you place a cross or a nought in the box, your student will see the same thing on their screen. Mystery word is a fun way of learning vocabulary and will help students remember the spelling of new words. To begin, think of a word or use one of the suggested words found on the right side of your screen. The student cannot see these words. When you have a word in mind, click on the number of letters of the word. Your student will see the same number of blank spaces on their screen. As your student begins to guess letters, click on the letter on the keyboard. This will highlight that letter for both you and your student. Please put your cursor on the appropriate line and select the letter using your computer keyboard. Your student will see each letter on their screen. You may find your student needs a little help getting started with this activity. Consider filling in the first letter or offering a clue to help your student guess the word. Word World is a fun way for pupils to practice spelling and word patterns. To play, spin the wheel to begin. A word will appear on your screen, but the pupil will not see the word. The spinner will stop on a letter, which will populate on the pupil's screen. Click No to continue spinning until there are enough letters for the pupil to guess what the word might be, or until the pupil can read the word on the screen. Click Yes to show a new word and play the game again. The words generated by Word World are random, and some can be a little hard for lower level readers, so you may want to wait until later in the year to play this game. The whiteboard simulates a physical whiteboard and is great for practicing spelling, difficult words, or making up fun sentences. It is also a great activity to extend proficient readers or when you have exhausted the flashcards. Type a word or phrase in the field at the bottom of the screen. When you click Submit Word, your student will see the same word or phrase on their screen. You can also move words and phrases around by dragging anywhere on the board. Why not make up a story together each week? Remember, you will always have a chance to practice activities prior to your session using the practice reading volunteering tool that we covered in the first training. Please also remember that if during your session you want a visual reminder of what a child should be seeing during an activity, which would then enable you to verbally confirm with them what they are actually seeing on their end, you can click on the small square screen icon just next to the child info link at the top of the page. This will enable a pop-up window which will be the representation of what a child should be seeing. If they tell you verbally that they're seeing something different, then please reach out to chat support. While it may be tempting to spend more time with your student, please end your session promptly after 30 minutes. There may be another reading volunteer scheduled immediately after your session, and the system only allows for one reading volunteering session to be running at a time. To disengage from the session, click on End Session from the menu, or click the red End link at the top of the page. As we mentioned in the basic training, after each and every session, we ask that you provide us with brief feedback on your reading volunteering experience. Your feedback does provide us with helpful information that might impact your next session, as well as the sessions of your fellow teammates. You'll notice that the final 2 boxes on the feedback form are for free text comments. The first is for comments directed at our support team, and we use these to help analyse and improve the Chapter 1 experience. The second box is for comments for teachers. These comments will also appear in the messaging section and are designed for you to let the teacher know your reflections on the session or for you to ask questions about your pupils' learning. Once you click End Session after leaving feedback, you'll be redirected to the homepage and can log out of the application. We're often asked by our volunteers for guidance about how best to support children who seem reluctant to read or who are shy. It's helpful to remember that many pupils chosen by their teachers to participate in Chapter 1 may struggle from a lack of confidence, and you may encounter children who are very shy and hesitant to read out loud. These children will often find reading difficult and may not be getting much support at home, and so need extra encouragement to persevere. Reluctant readers often share particular traits or experiences. They commonly lack confidence. They don't see themselves as readers. They've had negative experiences of reading. They know they find reading hard. They're afraid of making mistakes. They might not be used to practicing. They might have other things on their mind. If you are supporting a child who is at the very early stages of learning to read, it's helpful to think about learning to read as being like learning to swim. You begin by being fully supported, and this support is gradually released. You learn one step at a time to feel safe. Repeated practice makes all the difference. You succeed when you're given clear guidance on how to improve. Success provides the greatest motivation. Common difficulties a child might have at this stage of reading are doesn't recognize the separate sounds in a word. For example, E sound in sheep. Doesn't recognize tricky words on sight. For example, the. Struggles to blend sounds together. Misses words or makes up words. Reads the whole sentence but doesn't understand what it means. If you encounter a child who experiences one of these difficulties, remember that it is important to take things slowly. Suggesting children use their phonics to move through a word, sound by sound, will be helpful. You can use the sending to student box to break down the sounds in a word and send them to the child one by one. Remember, the pupil will see them delivered by a small owl. You can also model breaking a word into sounds for them. Don't forget to use words like blend to explain how you make sounds into a word. This will mirror language used by the teacher in the classroom. For children who struggle to remember common exceptions or tricky words like the or where, it's all about repetition. You can highlight these words by clicking on them and go over them often. It's also really important to try to build praise, enjoyment, and excitement into your reading sessions. Talking about the pictures in a book, enjoying listening to someone else read, and taking pleasure in the characters and storyline of a book are equally important during this early stage of learning. As you read with your pupil week after week, you might find the strategies below helpful when looking for new ways to keep the child interested in reading. We've summarised these into a helpful PDF, How to Support a Less Confident Chapter 1 Pupil. Start the session positively with a comment rather than a question. I've been looking forward to reading with you all day. I can't wait to see what we're going to be reading together. Spend some time reviewing the title page. Comment rather than question. I wonder what this book could be about. Or ask the pupil questions about what they see on the cover illustration. Can they make a prediction about what the story is about? Take a picture walk through the book. Go through each page of the book and talk about the illustrations. What does your reader notice in the pictures? What clues can they spot that might suggest what the story is about? Use the sound spotter technique with the pictures. You could ask, can you find something in the picture that starts with the letter S? How many different things can you spot with that sound? If you've moved on from initial sound recognition, you can adapt to vowel sounds and ask, can you find something with the A sound? I can see A, N. Rain. Does your reader have a story they love to read? If so, read it lots of times. Each time your reader revisits the same story, they become more and more familiar with the sounds that are repeated throughout the story. This repetition helps children remember and sound out words that may have been difficult the first time they read the story. While verbal praise is very motivating and should be given often, we also provide several high-five pop-ups you can use to further reward your students' hard work. When giving praise, explain what it was they did so well. Let them know why you feel it deserves praise. Remember, it's not just about the result, it's about the effort. I really liked the way you blended all of the sounds together. I can see you've been practicing this word. The way you changed b for d when you got muddled really helped you to read that word. You should be really proud of yourself because you kept reading right to the end. Sometimes you might find that your session coincides with another class activity that your pupil is keen to participate in and which they ask you if they can go back to. Please don't be disheartened if this happens. If this happens regularly, send a quick message to the teacher and consider changing the session time if you can. Occasionally, you may find your struggling reader may appear to be uninterested or be easily distracted. They may even tell you they don't want to read and display challenging behaviour. It may be that you need to think about keeping your initial sessions with your pupils shorter to start with. If 30 minutes just seems too long for them to focus and keep engaged, start at 15 minutes and build the time up gradually. Any reading time that they have is a bonus at this age. Do also remember that being a child is hard work. Each day they're learning a huge amount about the world around them. Keep in mind that something may have happened in their day to unsettle them. Perhaps they had an argument with a best friend. What can seem like a small thing to an adult could be upsetting to a child. If a child's behaviour is challenging in a session, try following these steps. Make a simple, clear request. Gemma, shall we focus on reading the story? Make a closed request. Thank you for focusing so well on the story, Gemma. Frame a positive choice. Gemma, are you able to focus on reading with me, or do we need to stop reading for today? Lastly, if your session doesn't go to plan, remember it's not likely to be about you. Reflect afterwards on whether you could have done anything differently, and if over time you feel that you're not making progress, contact the child's teacher for advice using the messaging part of the platform. You and your assigned pupil will work together for the entire school year. As you work together, be sure to document their progress in the session notes section of the portal. You will be amazed by the growth your student will achieve by the end of the school year. Please remember that the session notes section is for your reference only and a good way to track what you've worked on each week. You can take notes during a session or after the session is over by clicking on the session notes link. The child's teacher will not see these notes. When calling the classroom for your session, keep in mind that primary school classrooms are very busy and can be unpredictable. Young pupils are always on the move, which means that your calls may not be answered right away and may occasionally be missed. Please try calling back if you do not receive an answer on the first attempt. Sometimes it takes a little longer for the phone greeter to answer the call. Classrooms full of young children can also get very noisy, and some classroom activities can create a lot of commotion. If you find that a noisy classroom consistently interferes with your reading volunteering session, please report this to live chat support, as they might be able to help. You can also ask the pupil to raise the quiet please sign to remind the teacher that he or she is in a session. During the school year, we encourage reading volunteers to take advantage of opportunities to meet with their pupil in person, if geography permits, or virtually. This may include an autumn meet and greet and a year-end celebration. The meet and greet typically takes place in November to January and is a short virtual meeting where you and your fellow reading volunteers can meet your children and/or class teacher online. At the end of each year, we encourage our volunteer reading volunteers to visit their school and celebrate the great reading work done with their pupil during the school year. For reading volunteer teams who are not able to travel to the school, we will attempt to organise a virtual meeting so you can see your pupil if the school is able to facilitate this. For any event that you attend, you will be invited by email and you'll be able to RSVP via our platform. The meeting section of the platform is where this information will be stored. Whether these are virtual or in-person events, they are a wonderful part of the Chapter 1 experience for teachers, reading volunteers and pupils, and you won't want to miss out. We've now reached the end of your Chapter 1 training. We hope you enjoyed it. Do remember that you have access to all this content, as well as FAQs, in our knowledge base. Thank you for taking the time to learn about our programme. Reading has the power to transform children's life chances, and your support will help us to ensure that all children have the same opportunities to benefit from everything that reading provides, enabling them to thrive in life. We hope you have a fantastic year reading with your pupil.